Hi, Rachel. You're
Hi,
live.
good evening.
Jonathan, you're live and ready to go whenever.
Great. I'll just give another minute or two. The members from the last Zoom are not here yet. So there's one. Okay, looks like everybody is here. It is 7:01. I am hereby calling to order this regular Board of Education meeting for Monday, April 5th. If everyone would please take themselves off mute and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the
of the
United
States of America,
and
to
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
for all. Thank you. Now you can all go back on mute. Okay, Chairman's report, a few items from me. First off, CABE, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, there's a CABE webinar where they will be going over the disposition of all of the bills that have gone to the Education Committee. We'll hear which ones are coming out of committee, which ones are dying in committee, and which ones have been amended and how. So that would be one good webinar. If anybody has an hour tomorrow, that's 11 o'clock, and you can find the link through CABE. Secondly, as you all know, on March 23rd, the Board of Finance met and approved a budget for the Board of Education that reduces our approved budget by $1,103,985, leaving us with a net increase of 2.35%. Next step in the budget process, it will be the town meeting on April 24th. So that's the next step up. Other than tonight, we'll be hearing how we're going to get to that $1.1 million decrease. And I just had a couple of thoughts and comments that I had about how that number was reached. On the one hand, I'm confident that the administration can do what they had set out to do this coming year with this 2.35%. That said, I am concerned for the year after this and the year after that. I'm concerned about what happens when the Board of Education brings the Board of Finance a budget that does have a new project or a new program, or does try to address some of the inequities in bell times between elementary schools, for instance, some items that do have a cost. I did not see much that would lead me to believe that the current makeup of the Board of Finance would be amenable to those changes. So I would like to just point out to the people that do watch the Board of Education meetings that want to be involved and say, how can I help the Board of Education and the school's budget in Ridgefield? My recommendation be work with the Board of Finance or to work on the Board of Finance. And thirdly, although this is not usually done in my report, I will be making a motion. We did have a couple of items that came to our attention after the posting of the agenda for tonight. So I hereby move that we amend tonight's agenda by adding action items D and E. Item D to be discussion and action around purchase of laptops for the computer programming course. And item E will be purchase of Chromebooks necessary for student testing. And I have a
Second.
second. All those in favor of adding the agenda item? We're not voting on the items, we're just voting on adding to the agenda. Any opposed? Okay, so those two items, D and E, are added to tonight's agenda, and that is it for me, Dr. De Silva.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It looks like we'll have another busy night, and we have our high school representative along with our PTA and our teacher rep. So I know that you'll fill us in on all the good things that are happening across our schools. Couple of quick ones. ERMS had a great, successful Spirit Week this past week, and we raised over $1,300 for charities of Kids' Choices. So that's wonderful news. Along the lines of good news, we will be welcoming Linda Johnson, our new elementary director, on April 15th. Alongside her shortly thereafter, Dr. Gundel, our new math science supervisor, grades 6 through 12, will be joining us on April 26th. Jonathan mentioned our budget. We'll be talking about that later tonight, but we did receive our ESSER 2 grant, and I actually filed that grant today. I do want to just clarify the priorities that were in ESSER 2. ESSER 2, the first priority is around learning loss, grade acceleration in the academic achievement gap and or remediation. The second priority is around parent support. That could be workshops, helping parents understand the social emotional needs of students. The third priority is around mental health and the supports around social emotional learning. And the last one, the fourth priority, is around equity of technology. So we originally thought that that fourth priority would be a little bit more open-ended than it actually is, and it's pretty focused on technology. So I applied for the grant today. At times when you apply for the state grants, they'll send them back asking you to make slight revisions. The buckets of which the application was written, and you'll hear about it tonight from Ms. Gillette and perhaps Dr. Hanaway, is around extended opportunities for students learning. So whether that's through summer school, extended day as we progress throughout the year, supporting our staff around social, emotional, mental health needs of our students, as well as our students. So whether that's through virtual experiences or telehealth, for lack of a better word, around, using our support staff. That was another priority. Facilitating parent understanding around development, as well as the mental health needs of students. That's another priority. That was a bucket that was written, that was included in the grant that we wrote. And the fourth was around some equity with technology. You'll hear about it tonight. You'll hear about it over the next couple months. You heard Dr. DeSantis speak about it at our last board meeting. There's no doubt that we need to upgrade a significant amount of our equipment. So where there is funding remaining, if there's funding remaining, we'll look at technology. However, we are allowed to revise our grant, and if it makes sense to do so, we'll shift it into priority 1, which is to support the academic needs of kids. Which is really the priority of our entire team. So that's first and foremost, and the academic, along with the mental health and social emotional supports, and the staff development that goes alongside that. So we're lucky to have that grant. It's about $430,000, just slightly over that amount. Why did I have April 14th here? I'm not sure what's special on April 14th, but I did write that down. I'll have to come back to that one. If maybe break, I'm not sure. But anyway, have a wonderful break for those that are watching, and hopefully you have some time to relax with families and family and friends, and we're hoping for good weather.
Susie, April 14th. Yeah, might be if there's any update for the community about April 19th.
Dr. Hanaway, we've worked together a full year. You can read my mind. On April 14th, we will provide an update to our families, grades 6 through 12, on the learning model that will be available to students. Just anecdotally, what I'll share is that for those of you who have children in grades 6 through 12, we sent out a survey to see who would like to come back. The good news is a lot of kids want to come back, a lot. So we're expecting our high school to be far fuller than it's been, and along with our middle schools as well. So that's the good news. Naturally, the challenge with that will be capacity and density, but as it looks right now, our school administrators have great plans. We're hopeful that the good weather, picnic tables outside, tents, and Joe's team will be working hard during April break to bring back everything that's sitting in inventory back into our classrooms. So all those desks and everything else that were put away for the start of the year will be returned. So I'll thank Joe and his team in advance. So that's the good news. On April 14th, we'll notify families that what our learning model will be. But as of right now, we're moving along that path to return our children. And I think that is it for now. But thank you, Dr. Hanaway. I knew you could read my mind.
Okay, thank you, Dr. De Silva. Liaison requests. I know we had a couple of committee meetings. Curriculum.
Hi, how are you? We had a reconstituted curriculum committee meeting on March 29th, and with Ms. Corey Gillette as the new assistant superintendent. The first thing we did was we looked at the goals that we had agreed upon previously last year. Make sure that at this point, everything that's going forward are aligned, and we may want to adjust them as we work together as a new team. The first thing we talked about was the phonological awareness initiative and work that's going to be happening now and through the summer, particularly with pre-K through 1. And there'll be a presentation on that on May 10th that will talk about it in more in depth. Second thing we spoke about was the CAT team, which is the curriculum action team. And that's Ms. Gillette and homeroom teachers, special educators, and educators talking about aligning a phonics resource for future use in our school system. And that'll be talked about on the 19th of April. Finally, we spoke about 2 other things, actually. We talked about the essentials curriculum review and a K-12 map for this. That's going to be happening over the summer, and talked a little bit about next steps, but it's just right there. But again, we're putting that as an ongoing agenda item as things move out. And then finally, Ms. Gillette talked a little bit about summer opportunities, which she's going to update us on tonight, so I won't elaborate. And we hope to have another meeting in 1 month. Also, we had a special, while I'm here, a special energy task force meeting on March 31st, which was not a regular meeting, but it was a meeting of the Energy Task Force with the Board of Selectmen and other members who are on the Board of Finance, et cetera. I invited Ken Schoberg to come with me because he's head of the planning committee, and he was able to learn more about initiatives for the town. And basically it was informing the Board of Selectmen and talking about how we can align our work, as well as maybe are there funds to have a consultant to really look and dig down into the costs and creating basically the cost benefit analysis of all this energy savings. And we also made some suggestions that will come up later, but I just wanted to say it was a very informative and exciting meeting. So I'll leave it at that. Ken, do you want to add anything?
I don't know what, like you said, it was very informative.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the town decides to do.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Policy committee.
We just had, just before this meeting, we had our April policy meeting, and we will be bringing forward 4 policies out of committee for the full board's consideration, hopefully end of April if there's room on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Any other liaison reports? None, okay. Moving on, student representative, Ms. Bucci, I saw you on the call there.
Hello. For any of you guys who haven't met me before, my name is Kate. I'm a senior at RHS. And to start, we are all very excited that the freshmen are finally being all welcomed back into the building on Thursday and Friday of this week. And then everyone in the school finally being welcomed back after our spring break, which I'm personally very excited for. It's definitely better seeing more kids coming into the building. For athletics, we actually just wrapped up our winter sports season. I believe it was like a week and a half ago, and lots of the high school teams were very successful this year. We had the girls ski team winning their state championships and their regular season, which I was on the team, so I was very happy about that. And we also had our boys and girls basketball teams both winning their FCAC finals, which has never been done before in 1 year, both of them winning. So that was very exciting. And we actually got a bunch of seniors who were able to go to the games and see everyone play for one last time, which was very exciting. And our senior class is currently organizing a senior night that will take place instead of a formal prom this year, which will be happening down at Tiger Hollow. And it's just basically going to be a nice semi-formal barbecue for all the seniors to come together one last time and celebrate their time together at RHS. And our biggest project that we're currently working on at the school is the Ben's Bells mosaic that we're installing in one of our courtyards. And the student government is currently working in conjunction with the No Place for Hate initiative that we've been running throughout the whole year. And we are currently in the fundraising phase where we are selling necklaces and selling cookie dough to raise funds and get that paid for. And our first event is actually this Wednesday. We will start by making the tiles that will go into the mosaic, which is very exciting. We have lots of kids, both from the No Place for Hate initiative, student government kids, and other kids that just wanted to get involved, volunteering to help with that. And we've actually gotten a lot of publicity because we've been installing the mosaic. We have like the Ridgefield Press, school newspaper, and a few other publishers actually writing stories about the mosaic that we're installing, which I'm very happy about just because I think the whole point of the mosaic is to be promoting kindness and inclusivity throughout the community. And the fact that so many people have reached out to get involved and to donate is very encouraging to me. But I believe that's it.
Thank you very much. NEAR?
Good evening, everybody. Steve Rowland from the NER Ridgefield. I just want to, start off by saying we're pretty excited. I think if not, most, if not all the teachers have received their vaccines or have suffered through, like myself, their second vaccine. But we would like to thank, Ridgefield visiting nurse, all the people in the district that have been involved in trying to expedite this process for us by keeping it close to home and making at least the process of getting to the shot painless. I wish I could say painless afterwards, but it's good. And that being said, we are thrilled to see that we are going to have a significant number of students back in the school. We are really excited to, at least get to see some of these students who we saw and haven't seen in a while, and meet some of the ones we haven't had the opportunity to meet, and to kind of get at least make a strong finish to the school year. Social, emotionally, as well as academically. Most of the teachers have met with Assistant Superintendent Gillette, myself included. We begin discussions about, where we are and where we plan on going in the future. It was very positive conversations, and we're looking forward to moving forward with a lot of the ideas, that were put forth. And finally, again, thank you to all the parents out there who have been have been invaluable to us teachers. In a true partnership with home. And I mean that sincerely. We could not have done it without the parents at home. And we hope for that continued support so we make it through the rest of this year and finish strong. And if you are traveling, please have a safe travels and a well-deserved break. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, PTA representative.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's Gloria Driscoll for the PTA. Mid-March, the elementary school PTAs, along with RPS and Ridgefield Education Foundation, we partnered together to sponsor Dr. Kaboom, which is an exciting science show and that makes chemistry and physics and science fun. And Dr. Kaboom had been coming to the Playhouse for years, but since they were offering it virtually this year, it turned out to be a fun and enriching program for our K through 5 students on the full asynchronous day. So a big thank you to RPS as well as REF for joining us in offering this. The creativity of new events and programs that all of our PTAs have been showing this year just continues to amaze me. They are trying to find new and different ways to bring fun and normalcy to their individual schools, but they're also looking for ways so that they can support and partner with the local communities by shopping locally as much as possible. So it's been great to see. So over at Scottsridge, they had their own March Madness by sponsoring a mailbox decorating contest. And they've been highlighting a Ridgefield restaurant every month. So, so far they've partnered with Bailey's Backyard Pop-Up, 850 Baja Taco, and next month it'll be Genoa's. At Branchville, they had 24 amazing inventors for the Invention Convention. And their state finalists are Marin A in 5th grade, Jaden D in 5th grade, Sabrina R in 3rd grade, and Mila P in 3rd grade. And some of the category winners at the school level was Melanie M in 5th grade for most artistic invention, Isabel W for the best home improvement invention, and Caroline C for the best pet invention, and Nora M for making a difference invention, and honoring Magda Fincham Award. So congratulations to all those winners and everyone who participated. And tomorrow night, they're sponsoring another edition of the Branchville Come Play School series, where the math specialist, Prajakta Pal, will hold another live interactive class session with parents virtually and take them through math activities. And this time they're going to be learning fractions for grades 3 through 5. Over at Farmingville, they had a hugely successful virtual magic show with Tom Pache. The families had a blast, and they got delivered gourmet popcorn from the Prospector Theater for families who ordered it to enjoy while watching the show. The Prospector even made a special Farmingville-inspired raccoon razzle dazzle flavored popcorn for the event. The PTA also sponsored a Kaleidoscope Garden, who held workshop for students at the end of March, and they planted vegetables which will be ready to harvest in the fall. At Scotland, they had some diversity days held at the end of March to April 1st. They had lots of activities during the week to engage students on diversity, culture, tolerance, empathy, and differences. Parents were read virtually to the classes. They had a social emotional workshops run by Lorena Seidel, a Scotland parent, and who's also a social emotional learning expert. And she provided the students with positive and mindful tools for handling emotional challenges. Broad Baggart, an author of numerous poetry books, came to visit the grades 1 through 5 on April 1st. He compares himself to Johnny Appleseed because he journeys across America trying to plant the love of poetry for children. And finally, they sponsored a March Madness, which was for them a reading program created by their literacy and coach and literacy interventionist, and to support diversity of reading throughout the school. So they had a readathon fundraiser, which actually ended today, where kids were reading for minutes and people could sponsor them. And over at Veterans Park, they held their first annual virtual wine gala, which was a big success in terms of the number of parents who attended the event, which was 114, and they were able to raise what they would have raised during the in-person gala. So, big thank you to everyone who participated. They also had their 3rd annual invention convention virtually last week. They had 10 inventors, and they're sending 4 students to the state invention convention. So big congratulations to Richard Z for the Easy Breather, Tessa S for Remember Me window clings, Ethan G for the box desk, and Piper B for Gone Bites 6000. And again, congratulations and to all the winners and those who participated. The 5th grade at VP is also beginning rehearsals for Alice in Wonderland at Play a Part LLC in town, and they allow students to participate in what's become a 5th grade rite of passage in a COVID safe way. So, and before I wrap up, we just want to wish everyone a wonderful and safe and relaxing spring break. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Very busy in the schools. Next up, approval of February 8th minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes of February 8th, 2021 regular board meeting.
Do I have a second? Ken seconds. Discussion? Nora?
So I just found a couple of things on page 2 at the bottom. In the very last sentence, when it says virtual game nights, and then athletes are excited, and then the next page says enthusiastic. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be and, or maybe if it's just athletes are enthusiastic. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Okay, so then the second one is on the bottom of page 3. Sort of in the middle of the paragraph. On the far right, a sentence begins, the characteristics of roadways throughout the town, length and travel times. And then I think it should be and reduce.
Sure.
And then 2 more little ones. On page 4, in the top paragraph, right sort of in the middle, there's a sentence that begins therefore. Therefore, before the consulting firm is able to optimize, I think it should be optimize.
Yep.
And then finally, tiny, in the second paragraph on that same page 4, also right in the middle where it begins when it's time, I think it just needs an apostrophe.
Thank you. Any other amendments? Can we vote on approving as amended? All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 8th as amended? Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Next up, discussion and possible action items. Number 1, or A, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to on action item A?
Sure. Jonathan, just to clarify, you want a motion to review and discuss, correct? On A?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll open the motion, then we'll have discussion.
Okay. I move that the Board of Education review and discuss potential budget reductions to the fiscal year 2021-22 board approved operating budget to reach the $102,260,087 or 2.35% increase to our current budget amount as voted upon by the Board of Finance on March 23rd, 2021.
With a second? Nora? Dr. De Silva?
I'm going to have Ms. Norton start us off, but the goal here is really to be able to maintain the budget that we all left our meetings with before we ended up at the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance without having impacts anywhere else. And Dawn will speak to where we'll find those monies within insurance and benefits, and I'll take it a step further if needed. Go ahead, Dawn.
Sure. Okay, thank you. As Chairman Steckler had mentioned in his opening remarks, the Board of Finance met on March 23rd and set our budget at a 2.35% increase over prior year. That brings our budget to $102,260,087. And that's what will be going to referendum on May 11th. The two areas that the administration feels is areas to reduce would be the employee benefit line. When our original budget was brought to this board and approved by this board, we had an estimated insurance number in there for the employee benefits. The final number, the final calculation had come through, and it was much less than what we had anticipated. We had a 7% increase. It came down to 2.84, which was a reduction of $655,000. What we're requesting here is slightly more, about $350 more than that. But in discussion with the brokers, we feel that it's okay to reduce our line in this area at this time to that amount. If our turnover causes us to increase in that area, we will have to transfer in order to cover it for next year. We did have a couple of retirees pass away, and we did have a reduction of a few people this year. So it's possible we could come in those numbers, or next year it may increase slightly. The other area that we are recommending a reduction in is on workers' compensation, $100,000. We are working with the town right now to renegotiate our workers' compensation and our liability insurance, and hopefully, if those negotiations come to fruition, we will be at a lower rate than what we currently are. We have estimated these. We don't know the actual rate increases at this time, but currently in the budget, they're estimated at 8% increase across the board on all of the liabilities, as well as the workers' comp. So there could be a little bit of room in that area for reductions.
Just to add on to what Dawn just described, in the event that those numbers don't actualize, the opportunity to make some shifts within our operating budget into our grants, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 may be there. And so while, again, our goal is to provide as much acceleration and or remediation needed for our students, in the event that we have to make some shifts, let's say within technology, the grant was written in a way which would allow some flexibility to do that. You're going to hear later tonight with the added discussion items around technology for this year. So hopefully we'll be able to get some purchases done this year for this year. And if needed into next year, some of what we have within our technology budget, we would shift into the grant. Hopefully we're not in that position, but in the event that we are, the grant was written in a way to allow that flexibility.
Questions from the board? Any discussion? Kathleen?
First of all, I thank you for, looking at this. And I know every year that I've been on the board that because of those placeholders, particularly for insurance and workman's comp, are placeholders until they come down to the brass tacks. And I'm happy that Dr. De Silva at the end gave us the scenario if they weren't to happen, because there seemed to be a lot of ifs. And I just wanted to put that out there for the community who's wondering, what are the ifs? I mean, and I like the way you framed it at the beginning. This could be fine for this year because we had a lot of things that fell into place, but going forward, this could encumber us in other ways. Am I correct?
It absolutely can. Yeah, it absolutely can.
I just want people to know that that's out there, and that this was not magical, just playing with numbers, but this was taking some hard brass tacks and looking at it. And we need to know that going forward, that this is tough.
Right, you're absolutely right, Kathleen. When the underwriters don't make a determination and we don't have our actual insurance numbers at the time that we bring forth our budget, so we have to put estimated numbers in, and we do work with the broker to come up with a decent estimated number that he feels is appropriate at the time. It isn't usually until April that our underwriters and our insurance carriers come to a conclusion as to what our actual insurance rates are.
And sometimes they're positive, favorable, and sometimes they're not. And having gone through this in other communities just before coming to Ridgefield, oftentimes it goes in the other direction. And so there's a lot of variables that come into play and how that number is associated. And so it can't simply be that we run on the prediction that number, we budget on the prediction that number is going to go down. This year, it happened to be in our favor. And there are a lot of unknowns. We've had one meeting regarding workman's comp, I believe. Is that accurate, Dawn?
That's one meeting that we've had, correct?
So, at this point, we're hopeful that it will be favorable. And thankfully, we're in a position that we don't have to impact programs because we know we have one grant and we believe we're going to have another one soon. But outside of not having that, we would have been in a tough spot.
Okay.
And just these reductions of the savings that we're able to see in the lower rates were related, at least in some part, to COVID. For example, workers' comp, if we have less people in the buildings, then our rate is necessarily lower. Is that so with everyone? Is that not? I wasn't at the workers' comp meeting. Is that so? How was that calculated? And that where I'm going is we've just said, could there be? Is it going to swing back the other way once things are back to normal?
That can happen with health insurance, Ken. With respect to the workman's comp piece, this is a little bit different in that in our partnership
Insurance, right.
In our partnership with the town, they're looking at other providers, and as a result of one of the providers, it does look like there's an opportunity for savings. Again, we have not dug deep into what those coverages are and all of the other details because it really was a preliminary meeting. But on the health insurance side, what you're describing is accurate. It definitely swings, and it definitely swings based on the costs that the insurance company incurs with our faculty and staff.
Any other questions or comments regarding the budget as amended? Sean.
Just a procedural question on the renewal of the insurance stuff. Why does it seem to coincide with like after we're passing budgets and stuff? Why doesn't that get moved forward a month so there's less stress, less unknown?
Mostly, Sean, it's a timing thing. They work on a calendar basis, and therefore they don't start even their renewal process until the beginning of the year. And then they take the first quarter's actual claims into effect. So they go through March with claims before they even start looking at what their renewal rates are going to be.
So it's like they've never dealt with a school before and school budgets all over the state. It seems like a broken process. I may be completely wrong because I'm new at this.
So in terms of it being a broken process, at least for the public schools, it certainly is not a helpful process because we begin to budget in October, and we're basing a budget based on, it's a prediction, right? We're budgeting on a prediction. And sometimes that works again in our favor as it did this year, and other times not. But it is unfortunately the process that every school system goes through with insurance. And so for us, for sure, it's not incredibly helpful. But I imagine that they're working with a lot of other folks that are on a different kind of calendar than we are. As for the workman's comp, that actually came up as of recent, and in terms of looking at other opportunities for both the town and the school system.
I just had a quick comment. For those who don't know, I actually work for an insurance company. And we do health, not as much health as anymore. So we used to, but if all of the health insurance companies in the world worked on a calendar year basis for all the companies in the world, nothing would ever get done. So insurance companies work on fiscal years also. So why, and again, as Sean said, I'm new to this part of it. Why is that not something we can say, look, you're our insurance company, we want to coverage from this period to this period? Insurance
we do have coverage from one period to the other period. We are on a fiscal basis for coverage. It's the renewal process that is not, and that has to do with the insurance carrier themselves.
Right, but again, we're their client. We should dictate the terms of our contract with them. they're beholden to us. We shouldn't be.
I would have to refer to the broker that we deal with that negotiates that for us, Ken, to answer that question. I don't deal with the insurance company directly.
Would that be
Yeah, but
would that be appropriate to have it at a committee meeting? Maybe have an explanation maybe to the Budget Finance Committee?
Sure, we could do that.
Okay. I'd be as curious as Sean is.
Good comments. Any other discussion? Rachel, do you have a motion?
Okay. I move that the Board of Education adopt the revised Board of Education 2021-22 Ridgefield Public Schools operating budget totaling $102,260,087, an increase of $2,347,935, or 2.35% increase year to year in order to meet the amount allocated by the Board of Finance.
Do I have a second? Kathleen.
Oh, Kathleen, sorry.
All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Discussion item B, Ridgefield Alternative High School update.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Hanaway and Angela King, who leads the Alternative High School, and Ms. Fostoli, who's here tonight as well, and Dr. Greenwood in support of the Alternative High School program and providing the Board of Education with an update, and also some discussion on next steps for our program. Dr. Hanaway, you want to start off, or Ms. King?
I think I'm first, actually, Susie. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm pleased to introduce Angela King. She's our Ridgefield Alternative High School director. And along with Angela, I have Jen Fostoli. She's the assistant principal who works with the Alternative High School. And together, they're going to give you a program review and an overview of our goals and vision for the future. They also have some firsthand experiences from our students and from our teachers too. And so I'm sort of really pleased to present this to you and have a discussion about where we see the alternative school moving into the future. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Angela and Jen.
Hi, everyone. My name's Angela King. I'm the program coordinator for Richfield Alternative High School, also commonly known as the A School, just in case I interchange it. I've been there since the end of September, and I'm excited to share with you all these updates that we have. I thought it'd be helpful to give it some history on where the A School was and where it started. So it first began in 1994, where an English teacher had this vision of really helping students who were struggling at the high school and really preparing them for post-secondary life. Back then, it was historically 10th through 12th grade, and they had a population gap of 20 students. The original location is at 25 Gilbert Street, so by Ballard Park, and it's actually where we're still located today. Currently, we're programming for 20 students in grades 10 through 12, and that's right now we're at near or at capacity with our space restrictions, as well as maintaining a low student to staff ratio. So in alignment with the guidelines from the state in development of alternative programming, we've worked to create a program that really educates the whole student. So we have a vision of creating a safe learning environment for students that really are struggling at the high school in those bigger settings. So we look to individualize our learning experiences to really build their confidence and then challenge them academically. With that, the goal of obtaining their high school graduation requirements. All students from the alternative high school graduate with a Richfield High School diploma. So we look to make sure we meet their buckets to prepare them for graduation and help them develop the skills that are necessary for after they leave us. So our small learning environment really allows for us to develop a sense of community. We have smaller instructional groups, which allow students and teachers to really form strong relationships and develop rapport. Teachers really work with students to get to know them and to tailor their instruction to their needs, to being if their next step is college. So making sure that they have the programming they need to be successful when they move on to college, down to if they're really struggling, the accommodations to start scaffolding up what they need to gain that education. In addition, those smaller having the smaller class sizes and the smaller grouping allows our teachers all to collaborate and get to know kids and work together on strategies that are working for one student across disciplines, which is a unique feature. As you get into a high school, it's typically a much bigger setting. We also have increased supports for students. So we're lucky enough to have a social worker that's with us every afternoon, and that social worker is accessible to all students, special ed or general education, to really help their social emotional needs. And once we really get to know the students too, we're able to embed breaks based on that need. So we can really work towards learning the student, knowing what their frustration tolerance is, and building it to where they're going to be successful. We also have this opportunity to really get to know our families and strongly collaborate with them. We're able to do home visits, increased communication, really develop plans with families to ensure their students have success. Frequently, a lot of students come to us and they haven't been getting very many positive emails. So we work on celebrating those little things to continue to build their confidence and giving them the success to develop that independence. And again, building the sense of community. I thought it'd be helpful to maybe see what the space looks like where we are currently. So all the way to the left, we have a very small kitchen. We use that space for a student who may need to be working on credit recovery. Maybe they need some quiet space to get work done. Sometimes our counselor meets in there with students to have some privacy. The next picture is the left side of our room, and we have the traditional desks and we have our classes that run there. And to the right is more of our flexible seating, a preferable side because the couches are there. And that's where another class runs simultaneously to the left side. So the structure of our alternative programming allows for our classes taught by content area teachers from the high school. So all of our teachers have a caseload at the high school, and then they come down and teach their specialty with us. All our teachers are very dedicated and very flexible in working with our students and meeting them where they're at. This year, we have a social studies teacher, an English teacher, a math teacher, a science teacher, a PE health teacher, a foreign language teacher, and a music teacher. And we work on designing courses that are going to really meet those graduation requirements. We get to know what our population of students are and then develop programming so they can meet those buckets to obtain a diploma. We also have a special education teacher to ensure that our services are implemented with fidelity. So we work with the high school team that sends the students to us. We look at what their services are there and how we can replicate it in our environment to make those goals and objectives achieved. Also, we're very lucky to be able to embed credit recovery into our schedule. Most students, when they come to us, have struggled at the high school and aren't obtaining credits as their typical peers. So what we've done is we find as many opportunities as possible to build in those opportunities to make the credit recovery. For example, we had a student join us at the middle of Q2 who was struggling at passing any of his classes. So we made a schedule for him where he was able to obtain all of his first half of English, his first half of US history, and his first half of algebra. So whereas if he may have remained at the high school not getting any of the credit, we were able to salvage those credits, and now we're looking to see what else we can add into that schedule so he's successful. It's also, he's really proud of himself because it's the first quarter in his high school career where he's passing all of his classes, and it's not because the work's much easier, it's just the structures that are in place that really work for him. On all of our students also have the opportunity to participate in those high school extracurricular activities. So whatever events they may be having, like the senior prom or that senior barbecue they were speaking of, their athletics and clubs, they have the opportunity to participate in all of those activities. I thought it'd be helpful to maybe see a sample schedule so you can see what course offerings that we provide to students. So on the first day, we have our students come in at 8:10. They may go to their statistics class, followed by an oceanography science class. They have a lunch break, an algebra 2 class, and then they have their PE health class. This particular student was unable to obtain his math credits. He struggled with that at the high school. So we were able to give him 2 math credits and get him up to speed to be with his graduating class. Also, if you look at our 5 through 8 day, we were able to embed 8 credits to really meet the students' needs. So we have Spanish, so they can meet their foreign language requirement, a credit recovery section, a music theory class, a lunch, an English class, a law and justice, and some more credit recovery. Our math classes and our English classes are also co-taught with a special educator, so there's that support in place as well. If a student comes to us and they may have an IEP and require individualized studies class, we would put that into the schedule as well. Or if they came to us and we're really trying to get as many credits from the beginning of the year, we may take that statistics class and use that as more credit recovery time. So we try to be as flexible as we can to meet where the students' needs are. We also find it's really important that we lay out our expectations for students. So when they're entering our program, it's important that they understand that their attendance is very critical to the success of the program, and so that they must attend school daily, and we work with families and students to ensure that's possible. This year, in October, we knew remote learning wasn't working for students, so we were able to invite students back full time in person starting back in October, which has really helped a lot of the students in the program. We also ensure that students are engaged in the program so that they're actively participating in their classes. And we want them to be able to utilize the supports that are available for them, because knowing what supports are available and being able to access them are skills that are needed post-secondary. So we really try to do that as well. They have a lunch privilege. So we try to lay out exactly what that would look like for the students, where they're able to leave campus, get lunch, and then return back as long as they are abiding by all the school expectations and are returning in time for class. So after graduation, our students go on to, like students at the high school, to several different avenues. This year in particular, we have a strong senior class. We have students attending WestCon, a student that's going to Siena College, some students that join the military, and we also have a student that's looking into being a firefighter, and that program is next. And we offer the 18 to 22 transition services for students that may require that as well. So I thought it'd be helpful to also maybe have a quick background of exactly how a referral to the alternative high school happens. The team at the high school identifies students that are struggling and they think they may need a smaller learning environment. So they refer to us and we meet as a team to determine if we can program for that student. We want to make sure we're able to meet those graduation requirements, and we're going to help the social emotional being of that student. So if it was non-COVID times, the family would visit the program. We're a little restricted on that now, but we do still have a student shadow day where the student comes, they spend the day there, and that gives us an opportunity to see how the student interacts. Also, it's important that the student has some buy-in in being part of the program, that they feel that they could be successful as well. And as we'd like to collaborate with family and students, we really start with an intake meeting to start that collaboration right away, where we lay out our expectations to the family and student. We really engage them in developing their goals, where maybe graduating from the alternative school and going on to college, or maybe their goal is to get the skills they need, catch up on their education and their credits, and then go back into the high school. This year, we have 2 students that will be starting their senior year back at the high school next year, and they're pretty excited. And we also discuss their graduation plan to make sure that it's constantly the focus of what we're doing. So our long-term goals for the program, we want to continue preparing for the post-secondary education. If students, again, want to meet college course requirements, we try to find ways to do that, with that being maybe if a student's capable and they've shown that they've gotten many skills, giving them an independent study. So that's really teaching them how to structure their own time, how they can be successful completing programming. We'd also really like to strengthen our vocational components, where that could be maybe a work study. We can look at, we're looking at how we can incorporate the career and technical education and how we can have CTE teachers help our program. We'd like to expand our community involvement and see if there's ways that we can put some community service in place. We'd also like to build on our project-based learning. So really looking at cross-disciplinary projects to help students get the skills they need in areas of interest in different modalities. And with that, it's continuing to expand our alternative routes to meet these graduation requirements. We were lucky to really hop on the Edmentum online platform. And so we're starting that now, where we can take courses for students and help them be successful in different avenues if we don't necessarily have it running currently. And so finally, I asked a student for a quote, and he insisted that he wanted to write a letter to you. So this is the letter that he wrote. I won't read it all to you, it's a little lengthy, but I can answer any questions if anybody has any while you're reading.
I have a question. Just of the referrals that you get, how many aren't appropriate for the A school, and where do they then go get outsourced to other out of Ridgefield opportunity schools? Is that how that works?
Well, so we would look at to see if we can meet their needs at our program. Currently this year, of the referrals we've gotten, we've accepted everybody that we have space for.
Okay.
If they weren't a good fit, it would go back to the school team to help. They know the student best of what programming would work for them.
Okay. And 20 is your max, you said? Is that the max?
Well, 20 was historically what they picked as the number as the max. This year, with our spacing constraints, it's really hard to take more than 20 students, especially because we want to maintain social distancing.
Okay.
So Liz,
in non-COVID, how many spots do we have?
So in this space, there's 20 spots to fit comfortably.
Okay, thank you.
So to add on that though, we do some programming as well for students that may not necessarily be in the class, and they can be in alternative spaces.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, we're going to talk about the space, I'm sure, at some point, but if you wouldn't mind just going back to the photos of the learning space, just to give the board some perspective. For those of you who haven't visited, Angela's done a nice job with or actually I think John Mansfield is the one that's controlling the.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right. So John, if you can go back to slide 4, maybe. It's where the pictures are, the school space. Here we go. So where this smart board is in these desks, you'll see that whiteboard there is a smart board, and you can kind of see there's like a little step there. It's a really small space that's divided really like in half. So even though there's that soft sofas, you can actually hear what's happening on the other side. So 2 teachers within those 2 settings to differentiate is complicated even in a COVID space, I will say. Never mind in a traditional space. So I haven't seen the alternative high school with 20, but I can certainly say that it looks tight as it is.
Sure does.
Dr. Silva, I had a question. Or Jonathan?
Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you could see me raise my hand. If removing the space constraints, what would you see as the need? Like if space wasn't a constraint, would there be 40 students in our population, 60 students? What have we thought about that at all? Like, are we having to outsource students because we don't have the space in our alternative high school where perhaps that would be a better fit? Dr.
Hanaway, do you want to?
Sure. That has not been my experience since coming to Ridgefield. While students who may need something different than the alternative high school might be considered for the alternative high school. I haven't had the experience where a team has had to go outside of Ridgefield for programming, whether it be to partner with another public school district or to go to a private school because the A school didn't have room. I think that they're very cautious. I think the high school's been cautious about not defaulting to an immediate referral to the A school without going through iterations of supports at the high school, which oftentimes keeps from referrals having to be made, so that referrals that are made are those that really need to happen. I think that any consideration of space, if it weren't to be where it is right now, has to be with the option to grow, because the goals that Angela talked about towards the end of the presentation as it related to CT, career and technical education, project-based learning, and even, we're learning a lot of things about COVID with the blended learning model between, remote and in person, specifically for this population, and the ability to do some early vocational and job training, is that we're going to need a lot of flexibility. And I think that for me is a struggle with the current space, is that there isn't a lot of flexibility for things that should be part of the evolution of the program. That is a very natural evolution of the program, that if you went to other districts, you see that's a lot of components that are included that we're getting into, but there are space constraints that make those things hard.
There's just a piece that I just want to add to that, Dr. Hanaway, is that obviously we look to provide the best experience possible for students. And again, with the COVID, we have less students there daily. Thinking about 20 students in that space, we've outgrown it for sure in terms of what that experience feels like for kids. And so this year is a little bit different, but it's a bigger part of a conversation that we'll be having.
Margaret, you can go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Just two questions. One is I just want to confirm, I think we talked about it at budget time. I recall I asked this question, I think it was when the high school was presenting during our budget workshop. So the A school, in terms of where it exists in our budget, if you could just confirm. So I think facilities exists with Joe's group, at least the maintenance of the facilities. The facility itself is owned by the town, right? Then the teachers are under the high school budget, but the special services that might be required for some of the students would be under Dr. Hanaway's budget. Do I have that correct? So it exists in a number of different pockets.
Right.
Yes.
So that might be something that the board at some point wants us to do and distinguish the alternative school in a separate cost center. But right now it's built within the cost centers that you just described.
Okay, thank you. And I wonder, just because, if I know you all look at the budget, we all look at the budget as a whole, but if there were areas where we needed more, I'm sure Angela can think of many. Just wanted to know where that might be able to fall, but obviously that's in the integration of the groups. The second thing is you spoke about the referral process, and then you talked about actually specifically some students who had the goal of going back for their senior year. So I guess my question is about that fluid movement. My understanding of the A school is that if students go to the A school, it typically isn't with the expectation that they will be there for the rest of their career within the public school, but that ideally at some point they will reintegrate back into the regular high school. Is that correct?
It depends on the goal of the student, but we want them to be in the least restrictive environment. So once they have the skills they need, and we think that they need to be in a bigger setting, we would refer back to the high school team, and we would meet with them and kind of do the same process of seeing what their needs are and how we can program for them back at the high school. We would make the recommendations necessary to ensure that happens.
Thank you.
Sean.
So back to facilities, I have visited the A school. I'm a big fan of the program and the outcomes. How sustainable is the building you're in? It seemed concerning when I was there. And is there should we be looking for alternative space?
So we're in the process of doing exactly that, Sean. It's and Dr. Hanaway will speak about programmatically what our goal is for that space, because we do have a program that we are considering. But at this point, we've had our first meeting with the town, with Rudy, to discuss, and we're having another one after April break to discuss what spaces are available or what alternatives we could be looking at. Our team in and of itself is looking at local spaces that may be up for rent, because the reality is we're outgrowing it exactly like you described. And while at one point it was probably just right, at this point, the experience, I think, is it just needs to be revisited. Dr. Hanaway, do you want to speak to the 18 to 22 program?
Yeah. So this school year, we shifted the 18 to 22 program off the Veterans Park campus, which was a combination of using the barn building that's owned by Boys and Girls Club and one of the portables, mostly because that program necessitates proximity to the downtown as part of much of the community work, social and vocational. So the current building that the alternative high school is in, size-wise and location, is ideal for the 18 to 22 program. And we feel it's important that we move them back to the high school because of COVID this year and the ability to control a lot of the mitigating factors and access to nursing and things like that. There's no plan to keep 18 to 22 at the high school because of the need for those students to A, be out of high school, and B, be connected to the community, which is the whole part of the program. So the space where the A school is right now, the 18 to 22 program is smaller in population in terms of who's physically attending every day. And there's less whole group instruction to account for the issue that Susie was talking about with the sound and having multiple classes running at the same time. So it would work a lot better. We'd have to address a couple of, in terms of the facilities, the ADA accessibility of it, in terms of the bathroom and ramping, and we've talked to Joe about that. So our hope is actually to maximize on that space. It would need some updating, which we have ideas about, not necessarily structural, but maybe more just furnishing wise. But I think it could work, but that's all, these are all buts, lots of ifs.
And just in addition to the sound issues and the experience in that way, the level of privacy that some of the services require just isn't available in that space. It's, again, there really aren't separate rooms. It's one large room, a kitchen, a small office really, and that's about it. And so when you're thinking about services, counseling services, mental health supports, there really isn't anywhere to go.
Tina?
Thank you, Ms. King. Thank you. It was really informative. I'm new to the board, so thank you for sharing. It really helps me understand. Maybe this was shared and I missed it, and I apologize. I have some dog issues, but is the A school, or all the students who are in the A school, do they have IEPs? How does that work? I'm just curious.
So it's a general education. You don't need an IEP to be part of it. It's referred, gen ed, and IEP both.
Rachel, do you have a question as well?
I was just wondering, are there internships available for the children who attend the A school?
What do you mean exactly? Like they have internships now?
Yeah, preparing them for the next stage.
So that's actually one of the areas we really want to grow on, is finding more opportunities for them to get those internships and how we can build that into their programming.
They also have the opportunity to participate in the senior internship program like any other senior at the high school.
And one of our goals that we would like to see in the future with those CTE area pathways is for students to have maybe 1 or 2 courses within a particular trade area, and then they would get work credit or some sort of internship. So with the career and technical education, they're under the Perkins grant, there's multiple pathways, and we're just trying to maybe start with one, and then the goal would be to end with an internship or a work experience.
So I had an idea if I could just humor me for a second. So in reviewing the long-term goals of this program, I do believe we have an opportunity here as a town and possibly a tri-board to do more for our children enrolled in the alternative high school. And just hearing everything you're saying, I think we could definitely possibly expand on the internship and community involvement piece and the space. So my suggestion before even coming to this meeting tonight and hearing all of you speak was to build an after-school program or elective course where students would occupy a physical office space or storefront in our town, setting up a possible job search venue. I think this would allow for the expansion of opportunity for our students in the alternative high school to apply for those internships, but also find employment. Ridgefield businesses could inquire for interns and post jobs, and students would run this hub with supervised support. If successful as a startup, then I think Ridgefield could be the quote unquote innovator and invite other districts to participate for a fee into an after-school program or elective course. I think the town of Ridgefield could have the potential to create a line of revenue where hopefully it could be used to support Ridgefield Public Schools, for example, our turf fields. Understanding that as a board, we are not in charge of the day-to-day operations of the district. This is just merely a suggestion, and possibly a deep conversation can be had during our board retreat this summer. But I think, computer skills, setting up an online job hub online is important because, as we mentioned during COVID, you can't go into an office, but if you could do something at home and build in that work at home scenario for our children, interviewing skills, interpersonal skills, and also, I think these goals would align with the goals of the current program, expanding on the community involvement, definitely building on the project-based learning experience. So again, next step, if you guys thought that this idea had any substance, I would love to have it at our board retreat over the summer. And again, I do see it as a potential educational investment opportunity for the town of Ridgefield, where as a tri-board, we could collaboratively partner to expand the opportunities for our kids and to support their post-secondary future.
So Rachel, I won't speak for Ms. King or Dr. Hanaway, but so what you tapped into is one of the goals of this program, and certainly programs like this, which is PBL and authentic problem-based learning activities. The truth is, though, for some of these students, it really does depend on their need, right? Some of them have very specific, because they do have an IEP goals and objectives, and others just have specific goals that they're working towards. And so, I'll leave it to the folks that work within the program, but I do think that's just a piece to consider.
Oh, absolutely. Every student is different, right? So there's not one mold that if you created something like this would fit all. Right?
I think that in general that there's lots of room for creativity, and I think Ridgefield has shown itself to be open to partnering with the district on a whole slew of different ideas. So I know Angela is a creative person, so I expect that in the coming school years, you're going to see a lot of evolution as it relates to the community engagement between the A school and the town.
Other questions or comments? Kathleen, I thought I saw your hand.
I'll leave it because, never mind. Thank you.
Robert. Anyone else? Angela, thank you for that presentation, and please also thank Michael for providing that letter to us as well.
Thank you for taking the time to hear me.
Thanks. Next up, discussion item C, summer school update.
So I'll transition over to Ms. Gillette and perhaps Dr. Hanaway, who are going to provide and general overview on the bridge program that we have planned for this summer. And you'll hear about what this summer actually is, because there are 3 different 2-week sessions. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Gillette.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good evening. So tonight I'm going to give you an initial overview for the RPS Summer Bridge Program. So there are going to be 3 parts of this presentation. So first, we're going to briefly talk about the vision behind this program. Then we're going to describe where we are so far with our plans for each level, because it is going to look different at each level, as it should, and then discuss what the next steps are, and then of course take questions. So we struggled with a name for a summer program. We went back and forth, but this word bridge stuck with us. And if we think about it, what is our goal? Our goal is really to provide for our students a bridge back to a lot of the experiences that we missed this year, that we missed as a learning community, that our students missed in school, that perhaps students who haven't come back yet missed. So this program is creating an opportunity this summer when school gets out, starting right 3 days after school gets out. We're creating an opportunity for all students to return to the schools, engage with their peers, their teachers, hopefully unplug in order to acquire new knowledge and experiences in a low stress, highly engaging, creative, and non-traditional environment. So I want to share what that looks like, or what that's starting to look like as we're creating color around this program. So at the elementary level, and this includes pre-K, our programming is going to run 5 days a week from 8:30 to 12:30. And again, we're going to start in June and then have 2 sessions in July. And like I said before, it's going to be device-free. We're going to spend a lot of time outside with our peers, interacting in some regular ways, as well as some creative ways. There's going to be an emphasis on social emotional learning and support, as well as some support for literacy and mathematics. So picture tents, kids interacting, playing outside, spending some time in small classes with teachers, engaging and having fun, but learning at the same time. So that's our elementary level at this point. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about how middle school would look different. And in working with middle school teacher leaders, one of the things that they came back with that we really felt was important to include was an element of community service, and thinking about what different grade levels at the middle school could spend time doing in these 2-week sessions and contribute and partner with the community. So there are a lot of different ideas that we're working on, but they would include perhaps working on a public garden, so that students during that session could take a garden from the beginning stages to the final stages, something that they could really contribute and see, get their hands in the dirt, you know, unplug, be engaged. So we're also thinking about across the day for the middle school student, again, being outside, perhaps spending time cooking, and giving them, again, opportunities for something that we feel like is important in middle school, but can also be fun. And that's that executive functioning work. And we feel like through different creative projects, we can get kids working and engaging in this way without even realizing all the skills that they're learning. And of course, we would still have some traditional math and language arts work included there. So that's the middle school idea at this point. So then high school. High school, we felt like really needed to look different. So we have 2 elements in our high school program. One element that we have is course recovery. And we do think that that is really important, because we want to give our students the opportunity, perhaps students who weren't able to complete a course in mathematics or in language arts, to come back to school. And there's a program that can help us guide them through credit recovery so that they don't have to repeat an entire course for next year. So that will be a component of the high school programming. We also have a program that I believe started in the last couple of years, and that's a freshman readiness. So opportunities for freshmen to come in over a couple of days and be in the school without all the other kids, and then do some preparation for being in high school, really making that practicing the skills that they'll need as they transition from 8th grade into high school. So that's one element of the program. The other thing that we're designing are courses called intensives. So we were thinking that in June, how could we get high school kids back? Well, if we offered these mini intensive courses with inside of topics that they would be interested in, would kids come back? And we're really hoping that they will, because their teachers have come up with some of the most creative ideas. Cooking and chemistry, computer science unplugged, Model UN, digital art and design. Many of my colleagues and I would love to go to some of these courses. They would run from 3 to 5 to 10 days in June, from 9 to 12 every day. So you can see that the high school has different elements than the middle school. And then the middle school has some middle school designed elements that the elementary school doesn't have. So that's an overview of the 3 different levels and where we are currently in our thinking and planning.
I just want to give an added shout out to people whose brains have been working a little bit better than mine and Corey's have on a daily basis. And that's Amanda Johnson and Shane Peters from the middle school, who are going to be partnering with us to provide administrative oversight, but also have given a lot of great feedback and input to the design of the program. And the same with Jen DiGiulio and Eileen Stewart at the high school.
Yes, and Jen Hildebrand at the elementary level.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they're responsible. Amanda and Shane are responsible for the ideas with community service and reaching out to the community, which we think is a really important element for middle school. So our next steps.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, go ahead, Corey. Finish it.
Next steps. Thank you. So where are we now? So we need to finalize plans and hours and secure staff. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation because we haven't figured out how many families want to attend, but we also have to make sure that we have staffing. We're looking at our buildings and thinking about locations and flows and traffic patterns and all those important things. The next thing we're going to work on is communicating that plan with the community and then creating the programming. We need to share registration with families. We have a draft website, and that's how families will sign up. This program is going to be at no cost to all families. So the sign up will be simple. And then after we have our signups, we're going to need to create our plans for instruction, build classes, orient our staff, and make sure that we have everyone lined up, our nurses, our secretaries, our security guards, our schedules, our flow of the day. So that was an overview of our initial plans. I think that people who watched the curriculum meeting last week can see that we've definitely done work in the last week to flesh this out even more, but we'd love to hear any questions from the board about where we are so far.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I have a couple, so just bear with me. So on I know you said it's chicken and egg on one of the classes, but particularly things like credit recovery, is that going to be an invited group of people, or are you going to ask students, because some of the classes are more sort of fun and interesting and some are credit recovery. How are you planning on balancing, or how is that, are you going to extend that invite, or how does that work?
Yes, the plan. Oh, Jake, do you want to take that one?
I don't want to, but I
Since
certainly.
you had your hand up, so I'll let Jake start with the credit recovery.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we've sort of like a divide and conquer on this. So I'm working on the credit recovery side along with portions of my team, and Corey's been working along more with the intensive courses. So on the credit recovery, we have a pretty extensive spreadsheet that we're using for teacher input, and also, of course, traditional grades from Power School, meeting with families all along the way. We're looking at an online platform, Edmentum, which basically allows you to individualize instruction for kids. And so we're looking to hire a humanities teacher and a math teacher who will the kids will have access to, and they'll be working at their own pace on for credit recovery. We certainly have more kids who are in need of credits from last year and this year than ever before. And we're really, really hopeful that with the carrot of being able to work at your own pace, so that when you're done versus being, trapped for 5 weeks. And then secondarily at no cost to families. And then third, hopefully live. That's what we're expecting to do it. That we'll be able to really move some kids along and keep everybody moving in the right direction. So that's the credit
that was a
recovery.
build out of my question of what kind of population are we looking at of kids who just need it versus those that maybe would enjoy.
Yeah, definitely two different populations, but I'm pretty sure that Corey has it set up, and you can jump back in, Corey, that a student who is that we need for credit recovery also would before that have the opportunity to do the intensives.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that we were opening our intensives, which we see as highly engaging, different kinds of learning experiences. That happens in June 1st, and then the credit recovery starts. So you really can do both, and we really are hoping to get students to do both. But yes, Jake is very much on top of the kids who would strongly benefit from that credit recovery. And we do hope they take advantage of it. It is an online platform, but they are working one-on-one with a teacher through their course. So the way that we're thinking about structuring it, kids get a lot of attention and guidance from that teacher. So there is a digital component, but there's very much a teacher there with them and engaging with them as they go through the process. So they're not alone on their screen. That is not the goal.
And thank you. And have you all considered doing a survey of interest on some of these, especially at the lower levels? I know, there's a lot of families in different spots around coming back, just to figure out sizing, at least general.
That's where we are next. The first thing that we had to figure out, which we're still doing some work on, is staffing. Because that really should, depending on how many teachers we have, we have a June session and then 2 in July. So you could probably guess which sessions are more popular in terms of staffing by teachers, which we totally understand. It's been a hard, long year. So once we get that, then yes. And we have been interviewing some community members and getting some ideas, but until we get a survey out to parents, we're not going to know exactly how much interest we're going to have.
Susie and I were.
Sorry, just to add to that is we did ask our teachers what creativity they wanted to bring to the table. And actually a lot of the ideas did come from the faculty. Remember, this is pretty new for our faculty to be engaged in a summer program, right? Outside of extended school year, ESY, we haven't been able to offer a program like this. And really these types of summer programs, as Corey just described, these typically take like a year to create. You're creating a lot of modules, you're thinking about materials, resources, you're doing exactly what you described, Liz, checking in with kids and what they might be interested in addition to faculty, and having them create proposals that might align to what kids are interested in. We don't have that luxury of time. We do have the luxury of offering something engaging for kids that's connected to what's important to them, but also what just might be interesting, something that they've tried, they want to try that's new, that they might have not taken the opportunity to do so otherwise. And I think Corey said it, we looked at some of the opportunities and said, yeah, we'd take that. That would be fun. Because it's not just about the academic piece, it's really about kids connecting with kids. And that can't be underplayed on the social emotional side. And that's across the continuum of age levels from preschool all the way up to 12th grade, is getting kids reconnected with one another in a setting that isn't high stress, right? Outside of what Dr. Greenwood just described with credit recovery, it's not intended to be that. Now, the unintentional consequence, we hope, is that there is obviously learning that happens, especially for kids that might be struggling with some academic pieces, and that's definitely built in. And the other unintentional consequence is that kids are reconfiguring back to what it's like to be in school. And the best word that we could use to describe would be that bridge back to what school and joy and fun should be in partnership with kids, while at the same time getting some of those academics, but the draw is not going to be that for middle school age children or even for some elementary age children. Come come learn fractions alone isn't going to do it. Now come learn fractions while you're cooking some pizza. Maybe, right? But that's a real piece because it is the kids' summer, and Corey just described it well. It's been a long, hard year and a half, and people want a holiday and they want a vacation and they want to have fun. And we're hoping that this does a little bit of both, and reconnect kids. I'm sorry, Dr. Hanley.
I just have one more. Sorry, I'm going to pellet you guys with questions a little bit. So you mentioned that this is no cost to families, which is fantastic. Where is the money pulling from then?
So two different sources. So the June, that's why it's broken up in the way that it is, Liz. The June session will be in fiscal year 21. So we're using any remaining savings that we might acquire, anything that we don't have. The grant that I described, the ESSER 2 grant will cover, and that will cover the summer as well. So based on the budget projections that we have, as Ms. Gillette described, it's a little bit of chicken and egg because we needed to know how much staff we could have so that we knew, what the programming would look like. So there'll be a little bit of shifting once we know how many students are enrolled. I think we finalized our staff pretty much. But that the financial side of it, we have the luxury of this year of having grants that are here to support us, which is why, of course, you heard us talking earlier around the operating budget for fiscal year 22. And the hope is that we do acquire those savings from the insurance so that we don't have to dip into the ESSER 2 or ESSER 3, because programs like this now and in the future are going to be incredibly important. You've heard us speak about the residual impact. So we're talking about impact now, which is, here at the superficial level, but the residual impact for this year and years to come. And we haven't talked about curriculum compacting and all of that work that will happen this summer as well. But we do anticipate that. So we're hopeful that this is not something that's a one and done, but that we have an opportunity with funding next year to continue this work if it's needed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's no transportation for these kids.
So actually, Ken brought that up at, I think, one of our meetings. I can't remember, they kind of blend together, but we're not closed on it quite yet. But we don't, A, know that we have the funding, and B, we talked a little bit about Ken's idea, which was actually to pick up pickup spots. And we're just not sure if that could reasonably work out. So we've kind of just put that idea over here, not to say that it's not important, but we've just put it over here for now.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm done now.
I think Tina had a question.
Yes, I think Liz already asked about transportation, so thank you. But first, before anything, I just want to say thank you to all of you who thought about this idea or bringing it, because I think after the year the kids have had, even socially, there's so much anxiety, connecting back to your friends. There are kids who've not stepped out for various reasons. So I think just that piece, just connecting with friends, going back to school, just being regular, as you mentioned, Dr. De Silva, I think it's so important. And I'm so glad that you're thinking like that. So thank you. Thank you to all of you that you brought this, all the teachers who've been part of this. I think it's great. And again, I have to give a huge shout out to RHS, because I think it's amazing that they thought about our freshmen. And I know there are so many freshmen with my child's friends, and I'm not meant my child's being back to school, but there are kids who've not stepped into school. And the fact they're offering this opportunity, I think it's great. So thank you again. You really are thinking about the social, emotional impact. And yes, the learning will come, and I'm sure there's going to be impacts to it. So first was my thank you. Now my questions. You talked about the high school part. So is high school only going to be in June, the classes that are offered? And my second question was, I get the credit recovery and the kids who need it, but will these classes be open to all kids? And I talk because, when you're at high school, if you're doing great, you just think of summer. And I said this at the curriculum meeting too, so I want to bring this, and I'm kind of repeating myself so that anyone who's hearing can understand the purpose behind it. So there are kids who are doing well for whatever, there are kids who are thriving in this environment. So this program is open to even those kids, right? I mean, besides the credit recovery part, which is a whole different topic, which you've talked about. So
yes. So the idea of the intensives is that they come in June, quickly after school gets out, that there's a menu of different courses that anybody can sign up for. And there's a huge range of them. I mean, you could see just from the initial list in the presentation, from cooking and chemistry to engineering. So they can be more Model UN, so they could be more or less academic, but definitely all offering that engagement with peers and with teachers. The credit recovery starts the last week in June. and runs through July. And like Dr. Greenwood said, when students are complete, they can finish. They don't have to stay through the end of July if they've already finished their course then. So there is an opportunity for students who are doing credit recovery to attend the intensives at the beginning of June, or at the beginning of the June session, because the June session in high school, some of those intensives only run for 3 days, some run for 5 days. So there's a lot of variety. Hopefully we can get a lot. My hope is that we will have a lot of different options that students can pick from, so that they can work around whatever they're doing at home, whatever their life is in June, but also, just like you said, so that they can see themselves in any one of these courses.
Thank you. And it's more logistic questions because, you know, especially for adolescents, food is important. This is growing. So are we thinking about cafeteria? How are we going to plan? Is this something you've thought, or are you going to think and process? I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, at this age, food is important to all these kids. So.
Snack. There will be.
I'm like, I know my first question would be like, do I get to eat? When do we get to eat?
Time to have snack. The high school intensives will be 9 to 12. And then you saw the elementary and the middle school schedule where they will have breaks and time outside and kickball and, you know, time under the tent, whatever, however they want to structure their day and what their schedule is going to look like. But yes, we thought about that. Lunch was a lot. There's a lot of other logistics. So kids will be able to bring snacks and there will be opportunities for breaks. Yep.
Ken?
Real quick with the intensives, are these going to be give any type of credit for the students? They're just strictly fun.
Strictly fun. Okay. Outside of the box, creative, different.
And Sean?
First of all, thanks for the heavy lifting on this. This is not insignificant. I know there's a lot more to come because this still has to be structured. My concern is with recruitment. We can't just throw out a registration list and hope that they'll come. We're competing with summer camp. We're competing with Boys and Girls Club. We're competing with pent up demand for vacations, frankly, because nobody's gone anywhere in a year. We need to make this, I don't want to use the vernacular, but hip and cool to be there. And we need to get folks in sooner than later before they've made their summer plans. So there's got to be social media pushes. There's got to be all sorts of ways to get people involved in this, to not just know about it, but want to involve their kids in this, especially since there's no cost. If I, as a dad, have to pay, $2,000 for a couple weeks camper, I can send them to this thing and it looks pretty cool for free. We can sway some people, but we need to get that push started early and often.
So we'll do, because we're very hippie and cool, so we're going to do all of the above, Sean. And once you see the website, I think you'll agree the team has done a nice job. Again, a lot in a little bit of time. And soon enough, we will have that push, just as you described. We did connect with our neighbor, which is the Boys and Girls Club, and talked about how we could mix opportunities and how we could ensure that families still have some flexibility. And as you would expect, Mike Flynn is in service of kids and in service of families, and our collaboration will continue between now and when the program hits the ground, and how his older students might be able to support some of the programming that's happening at Veterans Park or other places. So we're planning for that for sure. And the part that you bring up, which is real, is that we have to move quickly, and we are going as fast as we can. There's a lot of pieces that were unknowns, and certainly I think the biggest part of the unknown was the financial cost. And so the fact that that part is now a check in the box, for lack of a better word, I think we can move as quickly as my team that's on this Zoom call can go. And so there's no rest for the weary. They're moving as quickly as possible. But you're right, social media needs to be a big part of that. And they're going to have to step up their hipster game.
Margaret.
My question is actually a similar question to Sean's, but I'll piggyback on that now. So if on the flip of it, this is so popular because you are so hip and cool, are we allowing families to sign up for all 3 sessions, or students to sign up for all 3 sessions?
Yes, we already decided that yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an option.
And would encourage that for, for families or kids. Again, they've lost a lot. And so whatever that experience that, hopefully the kids want to be there and it's not being forced on them. But I imagine, knowing our teachers and some of the creativity that I've already seen, that they will be happy to be there.
Kathleen.
And for the happening classes, I would hope that, will there be, first come, first served? And then a cap? Because you only have so many faculty.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be amazing if we had to beg our teachers to do a duplicate of some of these courses. So I hope they're that popular, but we are limiting class size for sure.
Great.
Anyone else? Speaking for myself, it sounds very exciting. I think Bridge is an apt name for the project, and I think the students really not only need it, they deserve it. I'm glad that you're able to provide it. Okay, thank you. Moving on, discussion item D. Dawn, do you want to bring us through this, or Dr. De Silva, you?
I think John will start us off.
Okay.
First, I want to thank you for allowing us to bring this to you and have it brought from the floor and added to the agenda. Dr. DeSantis worked very, very hard to try to get this completed so that it would be with a regular packet. Was not able to get it all together in time. But there is an urgency for the purchases that you have before you. The reason that they are before you is because the policy requires $50,000 or more to come to the board for approval. The first quote that you have that you see, well, first let me say that he was able to find the specific computers and Chromebooks that he needed from a current vendor that we have, but he did search other vendors that we don't particularly have on file yet that we could add to our vendor list. He was able to find them with wholesale computers, and the other good part about working with the wholesale computer vendor that we have is that they are on the state contract. The first invoice there, the $57,750 one, is for laptops that are needed at the high school. Dr. DeSantis worked with Dr. Greenwood and Dr. Silva and looked at the various needs of the high school in areas that bringing more students back into the high school, what was needed. And in the engineering area and the computer lab itself, with the computers that were there, there was not the ability to do the social distancing that is needed or that could be required, bringing that many students in and putting laptops there. First of all, the computers needed to be updated anyways. And so by purchasing these laptops, it allows them to be mobile, to move to more locations rather than just being shoulder to shoulder in the lab room.
Yeah, so the computers need to be replaced regardless. So that was this is part of a computer programming class. So regardless, at some point they needed to be replaced. So what we're asking to do is to do that now so that it allow us to instead replace those desktops with laptops. So it'll support the kids coming back and being able to access different spaces rather than being stuck at a desk or a table, really, counter table on a computer that doesn't work anyway.
So it's not a $57,000 Band-Aid just for social distancing.
No. So I wanted to clarify that point. So there's again, normally these would have transitioned through a traditional process. The vendors that we're using are a part of the state approved list, but because of the allocation amounts, we obviously had to come and ask for permission to do that. But these would have been replaced at some point anyway. But the timing is just the right timing now, and we have the funds to do it.
Got it. Ken, see your hand.
The pricing on this particular invoice had an expiration date. Has that been extended or what?
The
what
vendor's
concessions
aware
are
that,
available?
this needs to be brought to the board. He's holding, that's one of the reasons that we were trying to move it along as fast as possible and get to the board.
Okay.
I believe that he's fine with, having a notification, if the board approves it.
Okay, so because it was pricing and there was a restriction on while the product is available, so. the
Yes,
vendor
right.
also included in the product.
Product being available is a real problem. That's just a general problem around Chromebooks and laptops. But as of now, from what Dr. DeSantis has described, it is available. And so he's hoping to get this order in so that we can actually have the laptops, hopefully upon students' return or shortly thereafter.
Thank you.
And then the second request, the second invoice that you have is all of the review that he has done with the principals and the review of all of the Chromebooks that were needed, those that were expiring and those that were needed in order to do the state testing that needs to take place on a district laptop. And the laptop has to be able to support the state's website that they need to work off of. He was able to find the specific Chromebooks that would allow for all of their criteria that he needed. And this particular vendor does have them available. And that is another reason why it's kind of urgent that we bring it to you for approval so that we can get that purchase in and get these before they go off to someone else.
Doesn't solve the problem completely. So we will not have all of the laptops that we need for our students. That allows for the state software to be downloaded. However, we may still actually need some more outside of this, but this would allow us not to have to switch Chromebooks around from, because that's what we would do, right? Because the logical question that you might be asking, well, is what would happen if we didn't have the money? We would have to then take the ones from the younger children and borrow them for state testing and then swap them back out. And so really create a testing schedule around a device as opposed to just getting the devices that we have money in our budget for. So that's the goal here. Again, it won't cover everything that we need, but it'll put a dent into some of the devices that we need.
As far as the funds, this is money that is available in current year's budget.
That's correct.
Okay.
What is the plan for the Chromebooks after testing? I mean, if we're getting them for testing, how are they going to be used outside of the testing?
So Dr. DeSantis in his last presentation gave you a sense of the priorities in terms of how the devices that we need for students, the devices that we need for faculty, the devices that we need for our office personnel, and the devices to support our classrooms. And so this puts a dent, small one, into the student side. And so how we redistribute these or redeploy them after testing will just depend, because some of those students are, they're good with their own device and they don't necessarily want a Chromebook. So we may keep it. We will be pulling back all our devices this summer. You may remember last summer we allowed our students to keep them. For inventory's sake, we're going to pull them all back. If there's a reason why a child needs to keep one at home during the summer, we'll go through that process, but certainly at least for the inventory's sake, we'll be bringing them all back. But these are a need. These aren't a want to, they're a need.
Other questions? Comments? Okay, we've got two. Should we have a motion on agenda item D?
Sure. I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of laptops in the amount of $57,750 to replace aging desktop computers for the computer programming course and allow for a full class to be properly socially distanced.
Do I have a second? Nora. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. And for agenda item E, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of student Chromebooks in the amount of $264,520 necessary for student testing.
And a second. Ken. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous again. Thank you. Both motions passed. Moving on, correspondence to the board, starting with public comment.
We do. Okay, we do not have any public comment this evening. Our correspondence report, we've received 7 emails since our last regular Board of Education meeting. 6 emails regarded the district decision of students returning to an in-person learning model in our middle schools and high school. And 1 email regarded the district decision to hold sport tryouts on a Saturday prior to the start of a religious holiday.
Thank you. That is the end of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Moved by Ken. Do I have a second? Tina? All in favor? Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.